Okay, welcome students. Today we are going to study about what is a population. Now we have to understand a population is a big part of a small group. Actually, it is a set of elements on which a study of some interest is expected, and it is called a population. A population is nothing but a set of elements on which a study of some interest is expected, and it is called a population. Now I can give a lot of examples for that. Take for example VSB College of Engineering. VSB College of Engineering, and this is a good example for population. So you take for example here VSB College of Engineering. This is a good example for population. And next example for the population is Coimbatore City. So Coimbatore City is another example for a population. That means the citizens, the group of citizens in Coimbatore City, that we call it as a population. The third point that I can take is about the Department of Electronics and Communication, that is ECE, Electronics and Communication Engineering in VSB College. We can take as a sample because all the elements in that particular department are the students. So we can say that it is a population. Now, after understanding what is population, let us have some idea or concept of sample. Now, what is a sample? Of course, a small part of a population is called a sample. I can give you an example. A small part of a population, just we should not say that. It should be aimed at some interests of study on the populations. You are taking the samples in order to study the population characteristics. Population characteristic we are interested, so we are taking a small part of a big part called population. It's a good example. The next example I can say is about sample of students from VSB CETC, that is VSB College of Engineering Technical Campus. For what purpose? To study the mean marks in mathematics in the first semester. So my aim is that I have to take some elements from this population, that is VSB College of Engineering Technical Campus, and that small part why I am taking in order to study the marks in mathematics. I mean the average marks in mathematics of the VSB College I am interested in. For that I am taking a small part of a big part, and this small part we call it as sample from VSB CETC. Another example also I can give you, and that example is a woman in Coimbatore City to study average income. That is in Coimbatore City, and that is what the population. I have already mentioned you the second example for population is a Coimbatore City. From that city I am taking some women's. For what? In order to study the average income per month. Okay, for that I am taking some women from Coimbatore City, and that small group of a big group we call it as samples. So actually, what is a population? Population is a big elements in which we are taking a small elements, and that small elements is aimed at to study the characteristic of the population, and this small part of this population we call it as samples. Okay, and that's what you have to understand. Take for example, this is a population of Coimbatore. There are so many women are there. From that women I am taking only 4 or 5 women, and then I am finding out the average income, and that income can be applicable to this population or not. That we will study later. So the small part is called the sample, and the big part is called the population. Okay, that's the end of this class. In the next class I will be taking another topic. See, with that I am coming to the end of the session. Population, a set of elements, or a set of or big set of elements on which we have to study some characteristics. Example, VSB College, Coimbatore City, ECE department in VSB. Sample, small part of a population in order to study something. Example, the students from VSB CETC to study the mean marks in mathematics in the first semester, or some women from Coimbatore City to study the average income per month. Okay, so big part is called a population, small part is a sample. A big set of big elements aimed at some study is called a population. A small part from the population to study something, to know the characteristic of the population, is called the samples. Thank you. Okay, welcome students, and I have come with another topic today to discuss with you in this wonderful day. The topic is about the parameters and the statistics. Okay, first we will discuss about what is a parameters. In the last class we talked about population, am I correct? So we are interested in studying the characteristics of some population. Okay, and those characteristics we call it as parameters. Okay, those populations we call it as parameters. So actually parameters is nothing but the statistical characteristics of population is called parameters. The statistical characteristics of the population. You are taking the population, and we are interested in studying about the population. These are called parameters, and that is called parameters. Let us have some look on that. Now let us see here. These are called parameters. So a parameters is nothing but the statistical characteristics of population is called parameters. Now I can give you an example for this. Okay, take for example the population mean of average income of people in Coimbatore City. The population mean, okay, of average income of the people in Coimbatore City. What is the meaning of this? I am taking the Coimbatore City, and each and every students, each and every people, I am asking them the income per month, and I am finding the average of that or mean of that. So this characteristic, that is average or mean, connected to this population of the Coimbatore. Coimbatore is the population, I am correct. So that is what a good example for parameters. So parameters is the characteristics of the population, and here mean or average income is one of the characteristics in the population, and that is called parameters. Okay, so to say, I can give another example for parameters. Mean marks of VSB college in maths marks in 2014 semester examination. What is the meaning of that? Each and every students in the VSB college, I am asking the marks of the students. Okay, then I am dividing by the total population. In mathematics marks in 2024 semester examination, I mean in 2024 semester examination, I am asking all the marks of the students in mathematics, and I am finding out the mean marks. Now this mean marks in maths is a one characteristics on the population VSB college, and this is also a good example for these parameters. Okay, so what we understand is that a parameter is nothing but a statistical characteristics on the population, that's called parameters. First example is the average income of the Coimbatore people. This is a good example for the parameters. Another example, mean marks of all the students in the SB college in maths during 2024 semester examination. That is a good example for the parameters. So the statistical characteristics of population is called parameters. Okay, now look at that about statistics. What is a statistics? Statistics nothing but the characteristic of samples. Okay, see, characteristics of samples is called statistics. Take for example, I can give you some samples of I have taken where mean of height of 100 students, mean of height of 100 students in Alfka College, the Alfka College. Okay, I am taking 100 students. For them, I am finding out the mean height. So this mean height is connected to the small sample, semi-height. So this sample characteristics, we call it as statistics. Similarly, we can find out standard deviation for this 100 people. Standard deviation for this 100 people. In that case, that also a characteristic of samples, and that is called statistics. Okay, so finally what I would like to say is that suppose this is a population and this is a sample. So any characteristic on this population, any characteristics on this population is called parameters. Okay, any characteristics on this population. Suppose it's a population, we are finding out characteristics. That is, we are finding out the mean or standard deviation or kurtosis of correlation, whatever it may be, connected to population is called parameters. It's called parameters. Whereas any characteristics connected to this sample, any characteristic connected to this sample is called a statistics. Take for example x bar, that's the mean of the sample, the notation, or we can say is a standard deviation of the sample. Is another example for statistics. And here also for population, mu is the mean of the mu. That's one parameters. And then another one is, we can say that it is sigma, we can say. So this is another example for the parameters. That's called population standard deviation. So population standard deviation, that is another example for parameters. Okay, so to say, let us have some feedback on that. What is a parameters? It is nothing but characteristics of the population. Example, average income of the people in Coimbatore city, because this average income is a characteristics on the population, therefore good example for parameters. Similarly, VSP college is a population on which we are taking the mean marks. So mean marks, average marks, expected marks is a characteristics on this population, therefore good example for parameters. Similarly, standard deviation of mass, that also one example for parameters. Now statistics, any characteristic study on the sample is called statistics. Take for example, x bar, mean of the sample, is a good example for statistics. Similarly, sample deviation calculated for sample is called a good example for statistics. Okay, so this is about the parameters and statistics. With that, we are coming to the end of the session, and we will be discussing another topic within another class. So thank you. Okay, welcome students. Today I am going to talk about another topic in statistics. Is about hypothesis. Okay, what do we say? Hypothesis. It's not coming. What's the problem? I could not understand. Hypothesis. What is a hypothesis first? Okay, so hypothesis is nothing. It is a blind statement. It is a blind statement for which the result cannot be forecasted. That's what hypothesis. Why? Okay, actually this is a the statement R, we can say, yet for which we don't know K-N-O-W, don't know the outcome. Okay, that's called a hypothesis. You must know that what is a hypothesis. Okay, so statement for which we cannot know the outcome is called hypothesis. Or we can say that we can say that an assumption. M-P-T-I-O-N, assumption, for which we don't know K-N-O-W, don't know the exact outcome. We can find the outcome. We can find the outcome only when the statistical test is applied. That's what we have to understand. A statement for which we cannot know the outcome, or we can say that an assumption for which we don't know the exact outcome. That is, we can find the outcome only when the statistical test is applied. Okay, such a blind statement, STATEMENT, statement is termed as hypothesis. That's what a good example for hypothesis. So a hypothesis is a blind statement for which we can work exact outcome, whether it is true or false. We cannot say, but when we can say, we have to apply the statistical test, and finally we can accept or reject the statement. Such a statement of blind test is, okay, take for example, I can say that is take for example, I say that the donkey flies. F-L-I-E-S, flies. So this is a blind statement. We cannot predict the future. Am I correct? It may be true or false. In real life situation, it is false, but in the TV programs, it is true. So we cannot predict that. So we have to bring this statement under statistical tests. Then only we can say whether this statement is applicable or not, true or false. So this is a good example for hypothesis. So like this, another example I can say that is, take for example, I can say the mean height, mean weight of 100 dogs, DOGS, dogs in can say Salem, SALEM, Salem city is 5 kg. So this is also a blind statement. We cannot predict whether this is true or not. That is, in the Salem city, we are catching all the dogs and we are finding out the weight of the dogs. That is 100 dogs, 100 dogs I am taking and finding out the mean weight of the dogs, and it is 100. So whether this is true or false, we don't know. Okay, we cannot claim this argument. Unless otherwise, you have to go for a statistical test, and the statistical test is accepted, then the statement is accepted. If the statistical test is not accepted, that is, statistical test goes rejected, then the statement is also rejected. So these are just blind statements. Without consulting statistical test, we can say that this is true or this is false. So such a blind statement, we call it as hypothesis. Okay, so hypothesis is nothing but a blind statement, and for which we don't know the outcome. It may be true or false, it may be accepted or rejected. This can be justified by what is called the test of hypothesis, that is statistical test of hypothesis. So when we apply statistical tests on this hypothesis, we can accept this statement as it is, or we have to reject this statement as it is. So that's what we have to understand. Just we cannot say one statement. It is impossible in our knowledge world, educational knowledge world. Right, now so type of hypotheses are there. One is called null hypothesis, null hypothesis, and another one is called alternative hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and that we will discuss in the next class. Okay, so let us recap of what we have studied today. Hypothesis means a statement for which we don't know the outcome, or shortly saying a blind statement for which the outcome we don't know unless a statistical test is applied. Such a blind statement is called Okay, welcome students. Just look at the screen. In the previous class I was explaining you what is hypothesis. Am I correct? So hypothesis is nothing but a blind statement for which the result is unknown. We have to apply the statistical test, then only the result is known to us. Such a statement, a blind statement, is called hypothesis. That is what we were discussing. Now we are coming to two different types of hypothesis. Okay, the one what we call as null hypothesis. Okay, so null hypothesis means a blind statement for which the result is unknown. The result is unknown. We have to finish the whole statistical test, then only we can say that whether this hypothesis or blind statement is true or not. Okay, now what is null hypothesis then? Now look at that. We assume that the observed values and statistical values are equal. Okay, so what do you mean by observed values? What do you mean by statistical values? What do you mean by observed values, and what is meant by statistical values? Okay, the observed values are the values from observed situation, that is observed values for the given situations. There would be a formula. From that formula we can get some values, that's called observed values. And for the same situation, the statistical values also available. Statistical values or values from the statistical table. There are a lot of statistical tables. Importance are chi-square table, then F table, T table, like that. So from that table, for the given situation, we can have some values, and from the observed values we have some formula. From that formula we will have an observed value. Okay, so if these observed values are equal to the statistical values, then we say it is null hypothesis. Actually what is a null hypothesis? Okay, the look at that, the observed values are equal to statistical value. There is a mistake here, VALUE. Okay, right. Observed value equals statistical value. Then this blind idea, the meaning that we don't know the outcome of this. We don't know whether this is accepted or rejected. Okay, we have to apply the statistical test, and only the result of this particular statement we can predict. And this type of blind statement, we call it as null hypothesis. So null hypothesis means the assumption that the observed value equals the statistical value, and it is denoted as H0. That is the meaning that this is null, H0, null hypothesis. So it is denoted as H0. So null hypothesis means we assume that observed value equals statistical value. The next one we call it as, now look at the screen, not null hypothesis, it is alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis is exactly equal to exactly opposite to the null hypothesis. When null hypothesis is observed equals statistical value, the alternative hypothesis says observed value is not equal to the statistical value, exactly opposite to this assumption. We call it as alternative hypothesis. Okay, and it is denoted as H1. The suffix 1 you have to write. Okay, and this is called alternative hypothesis. So in your university they are asking the question, describe null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. You have to write these two concepts. Null hypothesis means the blind statement where we assume observed value is exactly equal to the statistical value. Excuse me. Alternative hypothesis means the blind statement that observed value is not equal to the statistical value. The notation for null hypothesis is H0, whereas notation for alternative hypothesis is H1. So by this time you must understand what is a hypothesis. Hypothesis is a blind statement and result we don't know. We have to apply a statistical test, then only we can know the result, that is that statement is accepted or rejected. Next one is null hypothesis where the observed value equals statistical value, notation H0. Third one is alternative hypothesis where observed value is not equal to the statistical value. The notation is H1. Thank you very much for being with me for the past nearly 10 minutes. The next class I will come with another topic. Thank you students and congratulations. So welcome students. This is good time that I see you here. In this time I would like to talk on very important topic for university question, that is one-tail test and two-tail test. One-tail test and two-tail test. That's what the topic today we are going to see now. So this one-tail test and two-tail test are based on the hypothesis. Okay, take for example case 1. You suppose case 1 where we assume the null hypothesis as observed value equals statistical value. We have studied this already, I think. Am I correct? Now let us have that. So we have already studied here what is a null hypothesis. It is the hypothesis where observed value equals statistical value. That's what we have assumed there. Now look at that. So a hypothesis, case 1 is the null hypothesis. We are assuming that the observed value equals statistical value. That is the blind idea that we are assuming that the observed value equals the statistical value. That's called a null hypothesis. Okay, so what is null hypothesis? The observed value equals the statistical value. That is called null hypothesis. Now look at that. In the alternative hypothesis, what we assume is that the alternative hypothesis is that which is exactly opposite to null hypothesis. Am I correct? Here we assume observed value equals statistical value, and here we assume observed value is not equal to the statistical value. Okay, statistical value. This is the first case where the alternative value is not equal to. Now there are some cases where we assume that the alternative hypothesis, in the alternative hypothesis we would have two chances. One is that observed value is greater than the statistical value. The other choice is that observed value is less than statistical value. Okay, so we have the other choice that now look at that screen there. You will see that case 1. Now case 2 comes here. The null hypothesis as it is. You look at that. The null hypothesis is observed value equals statistical value. Okay, but look at the alternative hypothesis in the second case. What you are seeing is that alternative hypothesis, there are two chances are there. The first chance is that the alternative hypothesis, the observed value. Okay, now look at that. Let us have a close look on that. Here case 2, okay, is null hypothesis is same, observed value equals statistical value. But look at that alternative hypothesis. There are two chances are there. The first one is alternative hypothesis. There are two alternative hypotheses here. Am I correct? There are two alternative hypotheses are here. The first one is observed value is greater than statistical value. Observed value is greater than statistical value. In the second case, what you have, alternative hypothesis, we have observed value is less than statistical value. So there are two chances here in the second case. Null hypothesis is same, but in the alternative hypothesis, look at that. In this case we have only one chance. Observed value is not equal to statistical value. But in this case there are two alternative choices are there. First choice for the alternative hypothesis is observed value is greater than statistical value. The second choice is that observed value is less than statistical value. Okay, so on the basis of the second choice or the alternative hypothesis in the second choice when compared to these two cases. And we have two cases here. This we call it as a one-tail test, where the alternative hypothesis have only one choice, whereas here we have two choices are there in the alternative hypothesis, and this we call it as two-tail test. And this hypothesis testing is called one-tail test, and this we call it as two-tail test. So on the basis of that, we can get this idea that one-tail test, where null hypothesis observed value equals statistical value, and in the alternative hypothesis we have this one, that is observed value is not equal to statistical value, whereas in the two-tail test, now look at that, the two-tail test we have null hypothesis as it is, that is we assume observed value equals statistical value, whereas in the second choice of the hypothesis, that is in the alternative hypothesis, we have two cases. One is observed value is greater than statistical value. The another one is alternative hypothesis, we assume that observed values are less than statistical value, because these two chance also possible, this chance also possible. Okay, so one-tail test means where the alternative hypothesis have only one choice, that is observed value is not equal to statistical value. In two-tail test, alternative hypothesis has two choices. The first one is observed value may be greater than statistical value, and in the second alternative hypothesis, observed value is less than statistical value. Now only one thing that you have to understand is that, and this is called a right-tail test. This is called a right-tail test. A right, R-A-G-H-T, right-tail test. And the first, the alternative hypothesis, if observed value is greater than statistical value, this test is called right-tail test. Right-tail test. But here it is called a left-tail test. Left-tail test. So there are two tests are there in the case of two-tail test. One is right-tail test, the another one is left-tail test. So there are two-tail tests. One-tail test where alternative hypothesis observed value is not equal to statistical value. In the alternative value there are two cases. One is right-tail test where observed value is greater than statistical value. Second one is left-tail test where observed value is less than statistical value. With that, I come to the end of the session. In the next session, I will come with the another topic. Thank you very much and congratulations.